In this video, we introduce the demonstratives of Koine Greek. There are demonstrative pronouns and there are demonstrative adjectives. They look the same, but they function slightly differently from one another. Generally speaking, you'll hear most people and you'll hear me usually refer to these as demonstrative pronouns. If you remember back to when we talked about pronouns, we said that a pronoun is a word that stands in place of another word. Usually the pronoun has an antecedent to which it is referring. And when it's referring to that antecedent, it's going to match that antecedent in gender and number, but not necessarily in case. The case of the pronoun is going to be determined by the grammatical function of the word in the sentence. There are different types of pronouns. We have already introduced and seen many different personal pronouns, and now we are at demonstrative pronouns. They are demonstrating something or pointing to something in the form of this or that. So the demonstrative pronoun or the demonstrative adjectives, there are two kinds of them. The nearer demonstrative is pointing to something that is closer. This thing, or in the plural, these things here that are nearer to me. The so-called farther demonstrative points at something that is farther away. That thing there, or those things over there. The those has a bit of distance to it, whereas the these and the this has something close, which is why we have the nearer demonstrative and the farther demonstrative. In both English and in Greek, a demonstrative can function as both a pronoun and as an adjective. That is to say, a demonstrative pronoun can stand on its own, not directly modifying something else. When a demonstrative functions as a pronoun, the case of the pronoun is, or the case of the demonstrative is going to be determined by the pronoun's function in a sentence. So if it is the subject, it's going to be the nominative. If it's the direct object, it's going to be the accusative. The indirect object, it's going to be the dative. And if it's going to be a describer or a possessor, it's going to be the genitive. So I give you the example here of gnosko ton anthropon, ekenos estin agathos. I know the person, that one is good. The ekenos here is our demonstrative pronoun, the farther demonstrative, that one over there, but it's referring back to the human. Here, because it is the subject of the sentence, it's in the nominative case, even though over here the human is in the accusative case, because in this sentence the human is the object. So the gender and the number are going to match. Ekenos is going to be a masculine singular, just like anthropos is a masculine singular. But anthropon is in the accusative case, where ekenos is in the nominative case, because they have different grammatical functions in a sentence. The other ways that a demonstrative can be used is as an adjective, wherein the demonstrative is modifying a noun that it goes with. When it is directly modifying that noun, it's going to be in the same case as that noun. So it will match not only in gender and in number, but also in case, just like is the case with adjectives. So in English, the example, that cat is mine, should be mine. The that is the farther demonstrative pointing to the cat that's over there, but it's saying that particular cat, that cat, the cat is being modified by that. It is pointing out to which cat it is, so it's an adjective modifying the cat. Here in Greek, gnoskon ekenon ton agathon anthropon, I know that good person. We have two different adjectives modifying the person. So we have this whole phrase with the attributive adjective, ton agathon. It's attributive because why? That's right, because the definite article directly precedes the adjective. So the adjective is attributing something about the human, the good human, but it's further modified by ekenon, that. So that good human. So what I want you to do is get just a touch of practice here. You can pause the screen and I want you to identify the English demonstrative and whether it is a pronoun or an adjective. All right, so we actually have two, a bit of a trick question here. We have a this and a that. And before I tell you whether these are pronouns or adjectives, I want you to do these things. determine which demonstrative is nearer and which demonstrative is farther. That's right, this is the nearer demonstrative. This right here is Dr. Elder. He will teach that lesson that's happening on the screen right now to the student. So that is the farther demonstrative. This is the nearer demonstrative. And then what case is this going to be in, and what case is that going to be in? That's right. This is going to be the nominative case in Greek because it's the subject with the predicate Dr. Elder. So Dr. Elder would actually also be in Greek, would be in the nominative in Greek because the to be verb is functioning like an equal sign, equating two different things on either side, both of which would be nominative. The that up here is going to be in the accusative case because it's a modifying Greek lesson, which is the direct object of the teaching. So because the Greek lesson is the object of teaching and the that is modifying the Greek lesson, the that is also going to be in the accusative case. And that gives away our initial answer of which one is a pronoun and which one is an adjective. This is an adjective because it's modifying the Greek lesson. It's telling us the particular Greek lesson, that one out there that is on the screen, whereas this is functioning as a noun. This one, this human right here, is Dr. Elder functioning as the noun. So these are what our forms of the nearer demonstrative, notice I put that up here, nearer demonstrative look like. I want to make a few comments about these before I put up what the forms of the farther demonstrative look like. So notice here that we have a rough breathing mark in haute and in hautai down here. Same thing for hutas and hutoi here. These are essentially taking the place, those rough breathing marks are essentially taking the place of what we find as a tau elsewhere throughout the paradigm. So notice that very consistently we get a tu or a tau throughout the paradigm. So the other thing is that this looks like the third person personal pronouns aute and autai, these ones with the rough breathing mark here. The only difference is that breathing mark. So this is one of those cases where the small accent marks, because in this case the breathing mark, actually makes a difference. Insofar as if this were a smooth breathing mark, it would be the personal pronoun. It would not be these, it would be them or they. Then if the vowel in the ending is an omicron or an omega, the root is going to be toot. So notice that toot, 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 all throughout here. And then if the vowel in the ending is an alpha or an eta, the root is going to be tout. So that is very often the case, or almost exclusively the case in the feminine here. So notice here, toot tone, we have the toot here because we have an omega following this rule, though we have a tout here because the next letter is an alpha. And then the other place where this comes into play is with respect to the neuter plural and the nominative and the accusative. You get the tout instead of the toot because the ending is the alpha there. And so this is going to be what the farther demonstrative paradigm looks like. And you'll notice that the endings here are very, very similar to something that we have seen before, namely our good friend Swain Ionessus. We have the epsilon missing because the vocative is not up here. The vocative would be also covered by the nominative, but we're not going to really see vocative forms of the demonstrative pronoun. So we have Swain Ionessus, both for the nearer demonstrative, this or these, but also for the farther demonstrative. Swain Ionessus shows up down here for the masculine, and then the same thing for our first declension mnemonic, Asina Ionesas, with a little bit of modifications here because we don't have the alpha, we just have the sin, Ionesas, and the same thing right down here. So those mnemonics continue to be helpful for us, as does the fact that the neuter, nominative, and accusative are going to be identical to one another here, 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 and here, and they are going to be different from what we find over in the masculine and also, of course, the feminine. So that rule still also applies here. That same thing happens for the farther demonstrative, akenos, etc. We still have swain, ionesus, and asinat, ionesos as our helpful mnemonics. And this little helpful rule for these forms over here, which are identical to one another, but different from what we find over in the masculine. It is also the case that the definite article paradigm once again helps us out. As I've said many times, as I will continue to say, the definite article is your very good friend. You can sort of see in the endings here, to, to, ton, how the definite article is showing back up. Same thing over here in the feminine. Taste, te, tain, looks like the taste, te, tain of right up here. So those definite article paradigms are sort of embedded into the demonstratives here in the form of both the nearer demonstrative and also of the farther demonstrative, though the letters are a little bit different. We lose the tau from the definite article that gets sort of replaced with the new when it comes to the farther demonstrative. And just as there are unique uses or kinds of adjectives and pronouns, there are also unique uses of the demonstrative. So we're going to highlight a couple, 3 of these here. The first is the demonstrative functioning as an adjective that is modifying a noun. So in this case, it's going to agree with the noun in case, gender, and number, just like an adjective that is modifying a noun would. And it's going to be in predicate position. That is to say, there's not going to be an article before the demonstrative. So here, blepo, tauton, ton, anthropon, the article comes before the noun. This puts the demonstrative in predicate position. That is to say, there is no article before the demonstrative, indicating that it is an adjective modifying this noun. Demonstrative can also stand in for a noun. It can be a pronoun itself, and in this case, it is not strictly referring to an antecedent, or in the case of this example here, it's not strictly referring to an antecedent, but is standing on its own. And so here we have hutos, our nominative masculine singular nearer demonstrative. This one, this here, this one, this human, probably this man because it's masculine. This one is the human. So here we have 2 nominatives being separated or equaled by the to be verb. So 2 nominatives with an equal sign in between the 2. But notice here that this one is standing on its own. It's not referring to some other human that's already been mentioned. It's saying that this one here is the human. And then lastly, the demonstrative can function as a substantive that does in fact refer to an antecedent, which it will match in gender and in number, but not necessarily in case. Once again, the case will be determined by what? Exactly right, grammatical function in the sentence. Only high five we've had in this video. Let's go in for it. 1, 2, 3, high five. Good work, good answer. So the case is dependent on the function in the sentence. For example, blepo ton anthropon, I see the human. Ekenos estin agathos. That one, estin agathos, is good. That one is referring back to the human. And once again, this is going to be the nominative case because it is the subject in this subject-predicate relationship with the to be verb. This over here is in the accusative case because it's the object, the direct object of the verb see. So when the demonstrative is a substantive standing on its own, referring to an antecedent, it is not necessarily going to match its antecedent in case, but it will match its antecedent in gender and in number.